One of the hardest parts of getting older is feeling like something's off in your body, but not knowing exactly what. It's not just aging, it's often your hormones too. When they fall out of balance, everything feels off. But here's the good news. This doesn't have to be the story of your next chapter. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is an herbal formula made with science-backed ingredients designed to fine-tune your hormones by balancing estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol. It helps with common issues such as hot flashes, poor sleep, low energy, bloating, and more. With over 40,000 reviews and a bottle sold every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. A survey found 86% of women lost weight, 77% saw an improved mood, and 100% felt like themselves again. Start your next chapter feeling balanced and in control. For a limited time, get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com with code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
Coming up on episode 250 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the all-wheel drive VW ID4, the Chevy Bolt, the Mercedes-Benz GLS450, the 2023 Toyota Sequoia, the Buick Wildcat EV concept, and the new Lexus RX, and more. All that coming up next. Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. This is episode 250 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam All-Toyota-all-Lexus from Guidehouse Insights.
I am Nicole Wakeland from the Fast Women podcast.
And I am Roberto Baldwin. Let's say The Verge this week.
And
I don't remember what I said last week, but whatever.
And what have you been driving, Mr. Baldwin?
Mr. Baldwin has been driving the 2022 Chevy Bolt. You may have, I don't know, I'm sure we talked about it. In fact, I'm sure we did. In fact, I remember we did. I had this vehicle, maybe not this exact one, a while ago. They dropped it off at my house, and I think I might have taken it to the store, which is like a quarter of a mile from my house, to like pick something up. And I brought it back, and I immediately got an email from Chevy.
Oh, that's right.
They had done a huge recall on everything, every Chevy Bolt. And they're like, don't park it in your garage. Don't plug it in. Don't do anything. Don't
fire.
Don't put any kindling around it. Don't leave any fireworks in the trunk. There was a long list of things. Well, yeah. And they came in, they took it away. All right.
God.
So, Chevy Bolt is back. They've replaced all the batteries at a great expense.
Mostly to LG.
Mostly LG Chem, which is, I mean, it's their problem, their fault. Pay for it. So it arrived again. At this point, though, it's so late. And initially when they were like, hey, do you want the Chevy Bolt? I was like, why? It's too late for me to write a review.
Yep.
I'm not, no one's going to want to buy a review from me on a car that's been out forever. And then the fleet manager's like, hey, you want the Chevy Bolt? You know what? While you're waiting for the Bolt EUV. And I'm like, you know what? Sure. Bring it to my house. Because I need, it'd be nice to sort of compare and contrast that versus the EUV. So I got it in for a weekish in order to compare it to the EUV, which whenever that becomes available, I will be driving. The Chevy Bolt compared to the first gen, pretty much the same, to be honest. I think the seats are far more comfortable. The first generation seats, they were super. They did this crazy thing where they made them really thin, and they were kind of cool, and they were fun to drive around in for about an hour, and then you're like, oh, these are. So the seats are more comfortable. I think the ride quality is a little bit better than before. I remember the vehicle was jarring enough that my wife mentioned that it was The ride was rougher than our BRZ.
Oh,
Ooh.
jeez.
Why is this car's ride rougher than our Subaru? I was like, ah. So no, it's a better vehicle. It's still not on the Ultium platform, unfortunately. It's still on their sort of old platform. This is one of the vehicles. This at the time, this was like, we got this car from idea to on the road, and the quickest time ever. Now Chevy or GM says the Bright Drop Zevo 600 is now the fastest vehicle. They've gone from idea to whatever. But it compared to other EVs. I mean, it's got 200 and I believe it's 59.
Yeah.
Let me pull up 250 miles of range, which is pretty good. Which that's not pretty good. That's good. That's a good amount of range for a vehicle right now, especially one that's not necessarily newish. It's still
And it's the same basic car.
Yeah, I think
that they launched in
first-
2017.
Yeah, that's
the other
changed
one
much.
the other one had 66 kilowatts. This one has 65 kilowatts.
The original
Wait
had
a
60.
minute.
It went from 60 to
60?
65.
So when they would go
Woohoo!
from 66 to 65, there was a 66, and then
No,
it went to
it was
60.
never 66. It was 60 originally.
No, you
and then
guys,
went to
who's on
65.
first?
Anyway, so now they got 250 miles, 65 kilowatts. I don't know if that's gross or usable, because Chevy or GM is just really weird about that stuff.
Yeah,
don't know why.
I think it's the usable.
And yeah, I think they tell us usable. The gross is probably like, I don't know, 70 something. Good little car. It's Android Auto, CarPlay. I did my usual mileage run.
Yes. How did it do?
Unfortunately, it did really well. I got 275 miles on my mileage run. But the caveat is that I end up getting stuck in traffic a lot more on this run, because I did the run later in the day than I typically do it. So it got, that, which means that it didn't do 70 miles an hour for as long as most other cars. So if you take that into account, it was probably, I'm guessing, it still would have gotten probably 260. It probably would have hit 259, 260.
Okay.
Is my estimation. That said, yeah, that's a good range. The biggest problem with this vehicle is the charge rate, which is 55 kilowatts.
This
is
that is a little slow, especially compared to the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6.
Oh gosh, it's real slow compared to those. So it's not quick when it comes to charging. So if you're going on you could do a road trip in this vehicle, but it's not going to be the range that's going to get you. It's going to be the sitting around waiting for your vehicle to charge that's going to, at 55 kilowatts, which means, most of the time you rarely hit that top end charge rate. Maybe at the beginning, maybe for a little while, but then it sort of tapers off. If you're talking about 55, that means it's going to be, you're sitting around waiting at 20 kilowatts, 25 kilowatts, 30 kilowatts, and you're like, which is when you have, when you have anything over 200, you're like, awesome, because if you hit 190, you're like, this is great. It's still awesome. This is tapered off. What is So, and I'm going to talk about the price for about a hot second and then tell you that it's completely wrong.
It's not wrong yet.
It's
will
not
be
wrong
soon.
yet.
Will it be wrong by the time this goes live? It goes wrong very soon, doesn't it?
It's wrong.
I'm
It all
not
goes
sure.
wrong
They
quite
haven't
soon.
said exactly what the date is when they're going to start shipping the revised number.
Yeah. So this was the 2022 Bolt EV2 LT. They have the 1 LT and the 2 LT. I don't know why. That's such a weird trim thing. The one and the 2 LT.
It's a GM thing. They've been doing
GM.
that for many years on many models.
The starting price for this vehicle. This is the high end, I guess the upper trim level, $34,200 with the infotainment package with USB charging only ports, the Bose 7-speaker system, and wireless device charging. That was $600, and then adaptive cruise control was $375. $36,165. Destination $995. So almost $40,000.
And actually, that $995, and this actually relates to one of the user questions or user comments that we had come in, which praises GM for including the delivery charge in the listed price of their vehicle, which is something they've actually been doing for at least a year or two now. So when they advertise the price of a vehicle, that includes the destination charge, unlike every other automaker.
Good job, GM.
Yeah.
Good job. And GM should get props for getting the Bolt came to market before the Model 3. It beat the Model 3 to market, which is by
nearly
deal.
A year.
Yeah.
And not only did it beat to market, the first deliveries were in Fremont, California.
Yeah.
Were they really? Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Well, they did the launch drive for it in Palo Alto.
Yeah,
just
Palo Alto.
A mile or two from Tesla headquarters.
Yeah, I just drove around. They're like, hey, I know where this is at. No, there was a lot of shade. Unfortunately, once the car was out, they just never told anyone about it again.
Yeah.
And gone.
And they were, and when you talk to people at GM, they're like, oh, we're really looking at fleet sales, and and they got some fleet sales with it, but the fact that the only ad I saw with a Chevy Bolt in it for years was the one that Toyota had to make under the Dieselgate. What part of their deal with Dieselgate, they had to make an ad for EVs, and in that ad there was a Chevy Bolt.
You mean Volkswagen?
It was
Volkswagen,
debadged.
not Toyota. Volkswagen. You said Toyota. You just
I'm sorry,
accused Toyota
Volkswagen.
of Dieselgate.
I'm sorry. I apologize to Toyota. Volkswagen.
I apologize to
Volkswagen.
Toyota.
I apologize. Apologies, Toyota. Please
You're
don't.
fine, Toyota. No diesel issues. You're good.
Yeah,
You're good.
yeah. They've never sold a diesel in America.
Yeah, please don't come to my house and steal half the parts off my car. They're like, we heard what you said.
Evil
The
guy.
Volkswagen Dieselgate, they had to make an ad, and in that ad was a debadged Chevy Bolt.
That's
And they were like,
bad.
EVs are great, and there's a Chevy Bolt driving around.
I do remember that now that you're saying that. And I think that, me too, that is the only time I can ever recall seeing an ad for that, ever.
Yeah, but prices. The prices are coming down on this Mad Mamma Jammer.
Yeah, the price you just said was completely wrong.
Completely wrong.
Completely and utterly incorrect. Well, unless you bought it today. I guess if you
That
went
it
and
was
bought
correct.
it today.
If you just bought it,
Yes.
you're good. If you didn't just buy it, we're lying to you.
If you go buy a 2022 model, as long as those are still in stock, that's the price. The price that you just said is the price you'll pay. But when the 2023s roll out, which we don't know exactly when that's going to be, because they don't actually say when that's going to happen, but sometime in the near future, the 2023 Bolts will arrive with a substantially reduced price point. And the 1LT is going to start at $26,595. And the 2LT will start at $29,795, which is a $5,900 price cut on each one.
So now, to sort of help them out, because GM and what's the other place? Tesla.
Those other guys.
Since I don't know cars automakers anymore, they don't get the federal tax credit, which I still think is sort of bogus, because I'm an 80s kid. So it's bogus because I feel like those two companies are sort of being like, oh, you did a good job getting EVs on the road. Now we're not going to let you have that EV credit.
Yeah.
Good job. You don't get it. You're like, oh, but everyone else was dragging their feet. Yeah, they still get it, but not you.
Those losers, they get the discount. You wah.
Womp womp. You got to pay full price. But the full price is pretty low now on the.
And it's still cheaper than pretty much everything except the Kona EV and the Leaf. After their credits. So with their credits, they're the only ones that are going to be cheaper than the Bolt.
Yep.
And the Leaf that's actually cheaper only has 150 miles of range instead of 259 miles of range. If you want a 220 mile range Leaf, you are still going to pay more. The price is also going down on the Bolt EUV as well by $6,200. So, I think, I expect that GM was already planning to cut the price on the Bolt next year anyway, because once they launch the Equinox EV, which is supposed to start at $30,000, but given the reputational challenges they've suffered over the last year with the Bolt.
Reputational challenges. You have a career in PR, my friend. Okay.
No, that's behind me. I'm done with that. I think that's probably why they accelerated this price cut, because they were probably having a hard time selling these Bolts. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you need a inexpensive EV, these are probably you could probably end up leasing these for like a nickel at some point. Like
Pretty close to it.
I'll give you a nickel.
Remember the Fiat 500Es? Those were like $99. And there was a little while the Bolt EV, if you were a Costco member, you could get like a really screaming lease deal. So
really?
It was like ridiculous. It was so low. I was thinking about, I'm like, I'm not a Costco member. And then I remembered that my wife does not like the Chevy Bolt. And it would be her car, so now we got a Kona, which is, to be fair, the better vehicle. But
although the
it's
Bolt
also
does have
more
a roomier back seat.
Yeah, the only thing that's in the back seat of our car is our dogs.
Yeah.
They don't care.
It depends, on what a particular customer needs.
If you have like family or some of that sort of stuff, and friends.
Friends, who has those? That's stupid.
Those are overrated.
Friends.
Our main car was a BRZ, so we're not really backseat concerned. Yeah. And that was our only car for a while.
Yeah.
It was a BRZ, so back seats are like for us.
Okay. Anything else on the Bolt?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right, Nicole, what do you got?
So I have a car that I already had. So if you guys want to know about it, you can just go back to, I believe, episode 242, and you can hear what I said the first time. They gave me a car that I had a few months ago. I have the Mercedes-Benz 2022 GLS450, which is their ginormous, great big SUV. It is not an inexpensive SUV. The way this is, it is, in fact, $97,155 with a destination fee of $1,050, which is surprisingly low. I don't know. I somehow expected that to be as outrageous as the overall price of the car. So it kind of getting exactly what you would think. Great, big, luxurious Mercedes that looks fancy. I talked about a lot of stuff before, but this time, interestingly, my daughter was home from college, so I was carrying her around, and my brother-in-law and his wife were home. We were doing all this family stuff. It was hilarious to see the reaction of my family to this car. It's a $100,000 SUV. Not everybody rides around in a $100,000 SUV. I would not if Mercedes had not given me this one for a week. So, but like the things they're noticing and the things they're either liking or not liking cracked me up. They hated uniformly that you adjust the seats with that little silver thing that looks like the side profile of a human, and it's like on the side doors. Mm-hmm. And it's like there's a little spot. Instead of reaching down to the seat and adjust, every single person who got in that car, how does this, why are they, I don't like this. Like it was this, everyone hated it. I'm like, wow, I never really liked that, but apparently I'm not the only one. They all hated that, and they all lost their minds in a positive way over, do you know what the thing that they most noticed about this? We were driving it at night. Do you know what the thing that they all thought was the coolest thing they'd ever seen?
Oh, the lighting.
The puddle light that looks like the little Mercedes star on the ground. Like literally, my brother-in-law saw it. He's like,
everybody
look!
does that now.
But I know, but not everybody has a car that does that. I mean, everyone does it, but does everybody have a car that does it? So literally, John's like, and I thought something was wrong. I'm like, what? Oh God, what happened? He's like, look at this on the ground, and I'm thinking I have a flat tire. Somebody's hit the side of it. He's like, no. Puddle lights. That's it. He's all excited. He's like, come look with the door. I'm like, oh my God. When you open the door, it moves. I'm like, of course it does. Oh my God. So
it must be so nice to not be jaded like we are about these things.
Yeah, pretty jaded.
We're pretty jaded. That's just like, wow, okay. So you hate the little, you just want to.
Nice to still appreciate the little trivial things in life.
The little things. I like that. Also, this was funny. So I tried to do because you can activate the infotainment by saying, hey, Mercedes. And I was saying, as we're joking about the things you get or don't get in a $100,000 car, I was like, yeah, but you can just yell at it and it will do things for you. So John is in the back seat literally yelling at it to like change the colors on the ambient lighting. We took a 20-minute ride back from the movie theater from seeing Top Gun last night with John yelling, "Hey, Mercedes, make ambient lighting yellow." Oh, it worked. "Hey, Mercedes, make ambient lighting green." Oh, it worked. I'm like, John, it's going to work every time. It's the same.
Are you sure about that? I mean, it is a voice control system.
We had a couple of times.
Pretty good.
We laughed at him once, and when we laughed, it was like Mercedes, like, "I'm sorry, I don't understand you. Please repeat that," and everybody else be quiet. When we did that, other than that one time when we were sort of all laughing and talking over him, it got it every single time. And to the system's credit, he is literally in the second row screaming at the car, and it worked. It got what he was saying.
There you go. See?
Yeah, so it was sort of
Now,
fun to drive this and see their impressions.
Let me ask this though: do you think that it's actually a good idea that it can respond to people in the second row? You know,
Well,
I mean,
if
if you're
you're
driving
saying-
around with your kids, do you want your kids issuing commands to your car?
I guess if your kids are old enough or smart enough or whatever to figure out to yell, "Hey, Mercedes," I suppose that would be bad. Maybe that's a bad thing. Yeah, if your kids are like jerks.
You can just turn it off too.
You could. I guess if your kids are jerks, you can
I guess
turn
whenever
it off.
you get in you can set up a profile, one for when your kids aren't in the car, and one when you're with your jerky.
Your jerky, obnoxious
your,
kids
your
who keep
obnoxious
adjusting. Yeah,
jerky kids.
You're
that I
obnoxious
know.
teenagers.
exactly. So
You set up, like you can set the biometric, like one
Yes.
finger is you, the other finger, the middle finger is you and your kids.
The middle finger is like the kids are in the car. Dang it.
We
Yes.
solved the problem of
So that would
horrible
work.
children.
So Puddle Light's big hit. Hey, Mercedes, big hit. The way you adjust the seats, not
Not a
big
big
hit.
hit.
Not a big hit. Not a big hit at all.
It's like every time you get in a Mercedes, I still put my hand. I'm like, oh, whoops.
I know, I do. I'll put my hand down and my eyes will like literally be looking sideways and making direct contact with the little silver things on the door. And I'm like, where is it? I'm like, directly in front of you. You're looking at them.
It's like when you get in a Porsche and you're looking for the start. You're like, where the hell is the start
where
button?
is it? Yeah.
Where did I put the key?
And this was probably the first time ever. So this is all about what other people thought this time. I was at the drive-thru at Starbucks getting my Venti London Fog, which is my daily thing. And I got my Venti London Fog, and the girl went to hit it. She was like, "That car is the interior. Look at that screen." So what she picked up on was the giant screen, and which again, like when you say there's things that we see that kind of thing all the time. So we're like, "Oh, nice screen, Mercedes." To somebody who doesn't see it, they're like, "Oh, good gravy. That looks like something." I mean, she was impressed enough with it that she was saying to them, she's like, "Did you see the screen? Look inside that car." They're like hanging out the window at the Starbucks, checking out the screen. So it was sort of interesting to just see other people's reactions to it. And to a point, what you were saying is like we get kind of jaded that we're in these things all the time, so you get sort of used to them. But they are a big deal, and they're not sort of normal for everybody else, especially in a car that looks as pretty as this one. So it was a fun week driving the family around and thinking what they thought of it. And I mean, it's a beautiful car to drive. It's has plenty of power. It's not like it's not something that you're gonna like win races. It's big, so it has 362 horsepower, but it's a big vehicle, so it gets out of its own way. But it's not super fast. It's a 3-liter turbocharged 6-cylinder. 9-speed automatic, 369 pound-feet of torque. So it's got a decent engine under there, and it's fun to drive. And I'm really glad I didn't have to put gas in it because its combined fuel economy is 20.
That's pretty good compared to what I've been driving, but
Dun,
What do you-
dun, dun.
we'll get to
That's
that
a good
one.
segue.
That's a good segue. What have you been driving?
well, actually, the car I'm going to talk about today is the one I was driving until a couple of days ago. The one that's in my driveway right now is the new Lincoln Navigator. Which yeah, it's
Oh, that was the set. Oh, we're sorry.
it's not quite as fuel efficient as the one I'm actually going to talk about, but we'll talk about the Navigator next week.
Okay. I know. I just looked at the show notes. I'm like, how is that getting worse fuel economy than my Mercedes? Something's wrong.
Yeah. No, I had when I got back from Wisconsin, I had the Volkswagen ID4 all-wheel drive Pro. So this is the base trim of the ID4, but the version that now has a second motor on the front axle, which gives it roughly about 300 horsepower, so it's got a little more grunt than before. Still has the same 82 kilowatt hour battery pack. It is got compared. It at some point in the past 8 or 9 months, VW pushed out a software update to the ID4s, both rear-wheel drive single motor and the all-wheel drives. So they actually got a little bit of an improvement in their efficiency. So the all-wheel drive version of the ID4 now pretty much matches what the rear-wheel drive version originally got, which is it's 249 miles. I think when the rear drive first came out, it was rated at 250, and it's now I think it's at 260 or 265. So it's doing a little bit better than it was before. The ID4 is a compact crossover, in the same size class as what has now supplanted midsize sedans as the top selling car, passenger vehicle category after full-size pickup trucks. So this is going up against the likes of, on the electric side, the Ioniq 5 and the EV6, as well as vehicles like the Honda CR-V and Toyota RAV4, which I think is the best seller overall now of non-pickup trucks. So same kind of size, overall size as those vehicles. But unlike the gas engined vehicles, it actually has a little more room inside because they've expanded the passenger compartment and pushed the front bulkhead forward a little bit. So the VW ID vehicles, the ID4 and the ID3 hatchback, which is available in Europe, not here, don't have a front trunk because when you look at them in profile, you can see that they have shrunk down the windshield to bumper length and packed everything in there, all the ancillary hardware. So there's not, they actually have a legitimate reason for not having a front trunk because they have put that stuff in there. They haven't kept it the same size there as the gas engine equivalents. So you have a little more room inside. There's actually quite a bit of cargo space. I think there's almost 30 cubic feet of cargo space behind the rear seat. So very roomy. I said, with that extra motor in there, it's got a little more oomph to it. It accelerates a little quicker. Another thing that has gotten quicker since we first talked about the ID4 last year is the infotainment system. When it first launched last year, there were a lot of complaints about lagginess in the infotainment system. It has gotten noticeably better. I did not really notice any significant lag when I was using it.
So when you start it and you drive 3 miles, it launches before that 3 miles is up?
It does indeed, yes. In fact, it launches even before I get out of my driveway. So there's that.
That's a win.
It's generally more responsive. Now, that said, it still has the stupid touch controls at the base of the screen. So when I went out somewhere with my wife the other day, she tried to hit the pause button on the screen to pause something we were listening to comment on it, and kept hitting the menu button that was just below the screen because it's a touch control, a capacitor touch area there. And so when she was pointing at the pause button, her middle finger, as she was doing that, was also touching the button below it and causing a menu to pop up over it. And so she couldn't pause it. And I finally said, hold on.
Hold on a second.
I'll do it. You can't touch this part.
And she's ready to bash the screen. Why is this not working?
So so this is why some of those ancillary controls really should be physical buttons, not touch sensitive surfaces. But it is what it is. But overall, the performance of the system was much better, much improved. It's still I think it's a decent looking vehicle. It's got nicely finished inside, as Volkswagens typically are, and I enjoyed driving it. It was quite pleasant to drive. It's rated at, as I said, 249 miles of range, so the MPGe works out to 97 MPGe, which is not at the high end of the range. It's not as good as the Hyundai and Kia models, or some of the other higher end or some of the more efficient EVs out there, but it's adequate. It's about 35 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. I actually and this is the EPA ratings. I was actually getting in my driving about 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour, which is slightly less than what I got with the Kia. And granted, I got the 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour on the Kia with almost all highway driving. And this was more a mix of city and highway driving. So it's definitely not quite as good as the Kia, but it's I got better than what the EPA label value would indicate. So getting 250 miles of range in real world driving with the ID4 all-wheel drive should be no problem at all. The price tag on this one came out to a grand total of $44,870, including an $1,195 destination charge. So, at that price point, just a little under $45,000, that's actually about 10 grand less than the all-wheel drive Ioniq 5 I had, and about $8,000 less than the EV6 that I was driving. Both of those have a little bit more range than this does, and they're say a little more interesting to look at. The styling is a little more bold on those vehicles, but I think that this is actually a pretty good value for what you're getting here. It is obviously significantly more expensive than the Bolt, but it's also significantly larger, and I think a lot of people might prefer driving it, and it also charges a lot faster. It'll charge at I think about 130 kilowatts. So it's definitely worth taking a look at, and it's been doing pretty well for VW since they launched it. So you can get it as either the rear-wheel drive model or dual-motor front all-wheel drive model now, regardless of where you live, and it is available in all 50 states. Unlike Hyundai and Kia, they are not limiting it right now to ZEV states or anything like that.
Okay, so to roll down the rear window.
Oh, there is
Rear
that
window?
too.
Rear
Yeah,
window?
I forgot to mention that.
Did they change that
No,
yet? Or just still
no,
just,
they have not changed that.
Come on.
Yeah, so for those that don't recall, VW made the peculiar decision of rather than having on the driver's door having 4 window switches for the 4 doors, they decided to save a few cents and only have 2 window switches. And then in front of the window switches, there is another touch button that you have to press that's labeled rear. So if you just press the 2 window switches, it'll roll down your front windows, and then you press the rear button, and then press the window switches again, and you can roll down the rear windows. So it's an extra step if you want to roll down the rear windows.
It's ridiculous.
It is.
It's
It's ridiculous.
there's so much to like about the ID4. It's and then fortunately they seem to have fixed the issues with the infotainment system, which was just really laggy. That was like its big thing. It was the infotainment system. The
interface was fine.
Yeah,
but
the
it was
interface
just slow.
was fine. It just took forever for anything. So that's good. The touch haptic, all the touch buttons. I mean, that's in their entire lineup, and that's just we're gonna have to deal with that for the next few years. But the rear window thing, it's just trying to be clever for the sake of being clever.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's the
You're
opposite.
not buying it.
Some accountant said, "Where can we save 50 cents?" And they said, "Oh, we can get rid of these 2 switches." And it's like, no,
Boom.
that was a bad idea.
Money saved.
Yeah. But I do see a lot of ID4s on the road around. So they're
Not that often.
well, I live in
I believe you. It's just, regions.
Well, he lives in California.
Where I live. I live
Right,
in
exactly.
California.
Californians
I see a lot
buy,
of Mach-Es.
you know,
I've seen
buy
I've seen a lot of Ioniq 5s recently. I've seen a couple EV6s. California, Northern California especially, where people are trading in their Model 3s for other cars. Or they're buying Model 3s. There's still a lot of Model 3s everywhere.
Yeah, they are the new California Camry now.
They're the Prius. Because forever Prius was like the official car of California.
But they look better. I mean, the Prius.
Ugh.
Marginally better.
Marginally better.
Well,
The new
no,
Prius?
the current generation Prius is pretty bad. So
Yeah, the current
it's
Prius
quite a bit
is-
better than the Prius.
I mean, they've gone some generations, and the newer one you'd think would look better, and nope.
Went back.
Well, let's end the Prius discussion there before we say something we shouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Smartphones have gotten way more expensive over the past decade, and all it takes is one impact on a hard floor to make you wish you had spent a few bucks to put a case on it. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone, and it only costs a few dollars a month. Nicole, Robbie, and I travel a lot for our work, and we spend a lot of time in hotels, coffee shops, airplanes, and of course the Delta Sky Club. Connecting to the Wi-Fi in any public places with shared Wi-Fi puts your data at risk because bad actors could be intercepting what you send and using it to steal from you. It only takes some cheap hardware to intercept Wi-Fi data, and even a smart preteen can do it. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per victim selling personal information on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops the bad guys by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN uses state-of-the-art encryption that would take a supercomputer up to 1 billion years to crack. I have ExpressVPN on all my devices, including a MacBook Pro, Windows laptops and desktops, and Android and iOS phones and laptops, or tablets. When I want to be secure, I just launch the app, click once to connect, and my data is secure. As I said, I travel a lot for my work, and I have to connect to countless public Wi-Fi networks in many countries. I have ExpressVPN on all my connected devices so that whoever else is on the same network can't see any of my data. That's important because I often have to check banks, credit card accounts, and transmit client data that might be sensitive, as well as filing articles on news that might be under embargo. ExpressVPN protects all of it, and I've been paying for my own account for years. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings, and you can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? If you're a woman, you're not alone. With over 1,000 hormone disruptors in our environment, it's no wonder things can feel out of balance. On top of that, natural changes like PMS, menopause, and other life stages can leave you feeling tired, irritable, and trapped in a constant battle with your body. But here's the good news. You don't have to suffer through it. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is here to help. This herbal formula fine-tunes your hormones, balancing estrogen, testosterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol, which can contribute to weight gain, racing thoughts, poor sleep, and more. With over 40,000 five-star reviews and a bottle selling every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. Ready to feel like yourself again? For a limited time, get 15% off your first order at happymammoth.com using code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
Speaking of Toyota, Nicole and I went to ToyotaPalooza 2.
ToyotaPalooza Part 2.
Why did it call Toyota-thon? Like the Toyota-thon.
Because Toyota-thon sounds sort of normalish. Toyotapalooza sounds like something that's gone off the rails. That's what this was.
Yes.
I feel like it needs to be like, Toyotapalooza! Like, that sounds
Carrie
more
Farrell
dramatic.
was there, and there was
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
he's confused as to what's going on.
Toyota, this past week had tried to have multiple events simultaneously, which included several waves of having media come in to drive the new Toyota Sequoia. But they also had a couple of other things that they were doing at the same time, some of which had to be done simultaneously. So usually when you have multiple waves for a drive program, you'll have the first group come in on day one and drive on day two, and then leave either on the evening of day two or the morning of day three. And on day two, while the first group is driving, the second group is arriving, and so on through the course of the week. Mm-hmm. But because Toyota also wanted to do the global premiere of the new Lexus RX and have everybody there at once, you had 4 waves of people that came in, but at various times, and some of them were there like from Monday to Thursday. Some were there from Tuesday to Thursday, like I was, which was the shortest wave. Mm-hmm. Others were there from Tuesday to Friday, and some were there from Tuesday to Saturday.
Which
and they
is
had
cray-cray.
Yeah, and then they had a bunch of other stuff that they had us doing. They had some demos, some pretty cool, interesting demos of stuff. They had a couple of they had the new Sienna Autonomas, which is their AV ready version of the Sienna minivan that they prep it so for companies that want to do autonomous vehicle development, they can buy these things. It makes it easier for them to. They pre-wire a lot of stuff and put in redundant brake systems and steering systems. And Chrysler's been doing that for several years with the Pacifica as well. But even though they acknowledged that they were doing it, they would never actually talk about it on the record, which was really weird. But Toyota is actually advertising it now. So anyway, the Sequoia.
The Sequoia.
What did you think of the Sequoia?
I liked the Sequoia. I thought that it didn't change as much as I expected it to change because it's been over a decade. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sam.
Almost 15 years.
Yeah, it's been
like 2008.
So it's been a hot minute since they last redid this car. So, normally you get these all news and it's not that long of a time frame. They're significantly different. This was different, but I expected more different. I expected it to be more dramatic. 15 years, how far cars have come.
Well, it looks quite a bit different.
It looks quite a bit different, but it looks good. I do we got some time in to go off-road in it a little bit, and we got on a little off-road course, really short one, and then we did on-road driving, and they had us in we tried out the new Capstone trim, which is the highest trim in the lineup, so that's their fancy pants. It's like their new, the fanciest, the leather, the walnut trims or whatever, real wood trims, real everything, coddles you, makes you feel like you're a rock star, blah, blah, blah. That one looked really good. I thought it looked really good. I like that they have one that they really did an upscale interior, because Toyota interiors on the top trims are decent, but they never really have something that looks really like, wow, this is a really nice Toyota. I know they've got Lexus for that, but it's nice to have something in a Toyota that you haven't gotten into Lexus territory pricing-wise. So I liked the Capstone. I thought it drove nicely. I didn't think it drove, I was expecting it to be a little bit more well-mannered, because so many of the large SUVs that size today I know, it's got a truck thing going on, but a lot of them are very well-mannered. They feel very nice. They still know they're a big SUV, but they don't have that sort of unwieldy, like if you're on the highway, you don't have that, if you change lanes quickly for some reason, you don't have that sort of sway back and forth, like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh.
Unless you have a trailer hooked up.
It shouldn't feel like you have a trailer hooked up when there's not a trailer hooked up. And every now and then it did in highway driving. So I liked it overall. I love that they've, got the new infotainment system in there. I mean, they put that in the Tundra first. We saw it there first. So it's the same. It's the I don't know what they call the newest generation of the.
I think it's just the Toyota multimedia system.
Is it just, okay, I wasn't sure if it had like a fancy name.
They got rid of Entune.
Yeah, I knew Entune was gone. I couldn't, what are they calling it?
And the branding, because it had such a bad reputation.
Right, so they ditched it.
You got to throw that in a field and burn
Which was
it.
good. I mean, because it really is, the infotainment is a huge, leap forward from, that's probably one of the biggest changes. Like, that infotainment system is so much better than the old one. The old one was horrific. This one is great. It's what they have in the Tundra, so it's not, if you've seen a Tundra, you've seen what this new infotainment is, and it's much better. It was perfectly capable off-road. They did do, it was a very short off-road course, maybe
it wasn't a
minutes?
particularly challenging course.
No.
I'd be curious to see how this thing behaves, on the type of course that GM would send, or the Jeep would send us on with the Wrangler, not the Wrangler, the Wagoneer.
The Wagoneer. That's the thing. It was off-road, but it was like they had mowed a section of road for us to get to this field. The field had been mowed. We didn't just drive through the field. Jeep would have been like, drive through the field. Okay, fine. These guys sort of mowed a path through the field. And then we got to the off-road port, and they had, some stuff. So you had a wheel popped in the air, as you're going over these bumps, and they had it where you were banked very sharply to one side, so you could see that it does do that and maintain control. And there's a little tiny part at the end where they said you could drive faster, and then they told us don't drive over 35 miles an hour, and I was like, that's not faster. That's not fast. That's just the speed. You can't drive much slower than that and keep moving. So and it handled fine on that. I actually liked it, honestly. I liked the TRD Pro. Was it TRD Pro? Am I forgetting my terms? I liked taking the TRD Pro out on the dirt. I thought that was nicer to drive overall than driving the other ones on the highway.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go off-roading and that's what you want this for, I liked how it felt. I thought it was, and it looks really snazzy. It's got red accents everywhere, red stripe on the center of the steering wheel, and red stitching and fancy TRD Pro, everything red everywhere because cool off-road thing. So I liked it. I wasn't as impressed as I thought maybe I would be. I think, like I said, I was expecting a little bit more just because it had been such a long time. So what did you think, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, the design, if you've seen the new Tundra, it's basically the same design language. Back to the the second row doors, the front half of the thing looks exactly the same as the Tundra. And then it's SUV on the back. It's got independent rear suspension. One interesting detail is that the hybrid system that is optional on the Tundra is the only available powertrain on this.
Yes.
So they call it iForce Max. So this is a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 with an electric motor embedded in the 9-speed transmission, which is basically the same architecture as Ford's Power Boost, and it's close to the same power levels. I think the Tundra's got slightly more horsepower and slightly less torque than the Ford system, but they're effectively equal. But what I did notice in driving that, especially on the road, it didn't seem quite as smooth as the Ford system. Every once in a while, I would feel some jerking, and it's hard to tell if it was the clutch between the engine and the electric motor engaging, disengaging, or something going on in the transmission. It wasn't. I couldn't quite tell where the problem was, but it wasn't severe, but you could feel it doing something, which a lot, especially compared to other Toyota hybrid systems, is not usually the case. I mean, they're usually totally seamless. You can't tell at all. And also the fuel economy of at least during our couple of hours of driving was not particularly impressive, like about 17 and a half, 18 miles per gallon.
You know what? I should have mentioned that, Sam. We saw the same thing. We were looking at the fuel economy. We were like, well, this is going to be better than the old one. We're like, wait, it's going to be better than the old one. What is wrong with the numbers? It's going to be better than the old one. It's the fuel economy doesn't seem like it made much of a change, and we have no EPA fuel economy as of the moment we're recording this, and we have no Toyota estimated fuel economy either. So they've released nada about what the fuel economy is going to be. Sometimes we go to these things, and if the EPA's numbers aren't ready, they'll say Toyota is estimating you will get X.
Or
not
Target
even that.
Or something.
Nope, nothing. Not a target, not an
No
estimate,
mention.
not a tentative. Like, there are no fuel economy numbers. It's like, oh, okay.
I think they know what the fuel economy number is going to be, and they're like, let's just not talk
They don't want to brag about it yet.
Right. So yeah, that was interesting. And we didn't get great fuel economy when we were driving it either. And we weren't, my drive partner was not driving aggressively, but he wasn't driving, he wasn't hypermiling. He was driving with enthusiasm, and our numbers were not great.
The other thing that, at least for us, was not great was towing. The Sequoia can tow is rated for up to 9,500 pounds, 9,520 actually, I think is the total number, which is a pretty good tow rating. And they had two Tundras set up for towing evaluation. One was set up with a boat that weighed about 4,500 pounds with the boat and the trailer, and then the other one was an Airstream. And we took out the one with the Airstream trailer, and at about 65 miles an hour, we weren't quite sure if the problem was the trailer or the whole setup. The guy who came with us on that ride was saying that they couldn't get the trailer with, it was a single axle trailer, weighed about 5,000 pounds. And they couldn't get one equipped with a sway bar. And the trailer, as soon as you got to about 65 miles an hour, the trailer was definitely swaying back and forth. And it felt rather disconcerting, if you pushed much beyond 65 miles an hour. And so, I slowed down and kept it, just under 65 so that it wouldn't do that. And compared to a few weeks ago when we drove the F-150 Lightning, I drove the Lightning with a 9,500 pound trailer, and that thing, it didn't even feel like there was anything connected to it. This thing, even with a 5,000-pound trailer, you could feel that there was some weight back there holding you back when you tried to accelerate. I mean, it wasn't really slow, but you could tell that it was working a lot harder than the Lightning was. So that's another thing to consider. If you're going to be using this for towing, we'll have to see, if anybody else does some, or probably when the TFL truck guys, do their towing videos, we'll see what kind of results they get out of it.
See what Roman and Micah managed to do on their ranch.
Yeah. they always do a lot of that kind of stuff, and they do a pretty thorough job with it.
They do.
So we'll, you might want to think about that if you're going to be doing a lot of trailer towing. But other than that, overall, it was good. I mean, it was certainly a huge improvement over the old Sequoia, and the Toyota multimedia system is much better than anything Toyota's done before. I still have the same complaint I had when I first drove the BZ4X, which is that you've got a 14-inch screen, and they don't allow it to be split, to show more than one thing at a time.
Yeah, one thing.
Yes. You can have navigation or your audio controls or, other controls, but you can't have a split screen with navigation and your media controls at the same thing. Now, what they told me at the BZ4X drive is, well, you can use the voice controls, so if you're using nav, you can just say, was it, Hey Toyota, I think, pause the music, and it'll do that. Mm-hmm. But again,
or you could also just use your finger.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop.
Especially the music's really loud. How's that? Yeah. Oh, never mind.
But as I said when I talked about the Tundra that I drove a couple of weeks ago, if you are using CarPlay or Android Auto, those will give you a split screen configuration and use the full screen, so you can have map and media controls side by side on there. So there's that.
There you go.
Yeah. Toyota, they're sticking with body on frame like it's nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, for a vehicle of this type, I mean, everybody else is too, for these full size utilities and pickups.
Yeah, but everyone else has figured out how to make their cars drive better, or make their SUVs drive better.
That's what I was feeling. Yeah. Like that. I feel like
the Toyota customer is happy with this. Is the Toyota customer is like, I know it's not going to be as nice as these other vehicles, but I feel like I'm going to be able to drive over a cliff with this thing and it'll be fine. I think that's where
I think that is kind of the thing. Like the person who's buying this, like you said, Sam, you actually have a Navigator in your driveway this week, right?
Yeah.
And like the Navigator has an entirely different drive to it. I've driven the Navigator. I drove it to the lodge, and that has that like luxury car, like, oh, you're all this stuff. It's all fancy and smooth, and it's Sequoia is kind of like, you and your luxury car stuff. Let's go drive in the dirt. Like I kind of feel like that's what the Sequoia is doing.
Let's go mow a field and drive around it.
But then again, if you want both, if you want the luxury thing and the ability to go drive in the dirt, then there's the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, which does both. Yeah.
Which does both.
The entire
does them
Land
exceptionally
Rover
well.
Brand.
Yeah.
Yes. I tried. My cousin was Land Rover owner. He had an LR3, 4, I don't know. And he was looking for a new vehicle. I'm like, oh, try the. He actually goes off road. He actually has to. He does all these things. He does stuff with the Scouts. And I'm like, oh, go try the Toyota whatever. I forget what it is. And he's like, I don't like the ride quality. And went out and bought a Discovery.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the ride quality in the Sequoia was generally fine. I didn't have any notable issues with that. It felt fairly smooth and well controlled. But it's just some of these other things. Pricing on this, I don't think they even told us exactly when this is going to go on sale. Did they?
Originally, if you read the release stuff, it had said like August or something.
Okay.
Now somebody asked in my presentation, like, fall.
Okay.
It got a little bit. So it's bumped out. Like if you look at the original stuff, it all says like I think August or summer of 2022. It's not summer, so it got bumped a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not anymore.
Okay. Well, pricing for the starts at the SR5 4x2 model, starts at $58,300, goes up to $75,300 for the Capstone 4x2. In between, you've got limited and platinum trims. You can add $3,000 to each of those for four-wheel drive, and then the TRD Pro, which is 4x4 only, is $76,900. So that is the 2023 Toyota Sequoia, which will be arriving at some point in the coming months
And
eventually.
they'll sell 60 gazillion of them.
They'll sell a bazillion. That's it. When I was
I
talking
don't
to
know.
person,
I don't know if they will. Because
you don't think so?
the previous Sequoia never sold that well. I don't think it ever sold much over about 25 or 30,000 units. And, compared to, the Chevy, the GM full-size utilities, or even the Ford Expedition, it never sold as well as those did.
Bring back the Ford Flex. That's what I think we should.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like the.
Do you really like the Ford Flex?
I
do
love the
like-
Flex.
the
I have
Ford
always
Flex is
loved the
awesome.
Flex.
You know what? I have
gotta-
never driven one, but I
I've only
absolutely
gotten-
despise how it looks. Ugh.
I've
Oh, I
only
always
driven. I've only gotten a ticket in one press vehicle, and that
That
was
was
the
it?
Ford Flex. Going downhill, I wasn't even covering cars at the time. I was doing a thing with. This is when I was at Wired, so I was covering a bunch of stuff. I was covering tech, but we were doing a snowboarding thing, and we were driving back from Tahoe. I reviewed all these snowboards, driving back downhill, and I got a ticket in the Ford Flex.
That's funny.
Still love the Ford Flex. I like the way it looks. I like the little boxiness of it.
Yeah, I
also
think
like
it's
the-
cool looking.
I miss all the little boxy
I-
vehicles.
I don't
But
like it.
But if you look at the Toyota Sequoia, kind of looks like a bigger version of Ford Flex with a little bit more flair.
Yeah.
It's the seam, like they have that weird seams, like on the doors, the lines. It was like
Oh,
someone
on the
just, like-
Flex?
yeah.
Those creases?
I don't like the creases.
I thought
no.
those gave it some character.
No, they gave it an ugly. I didn't like them.
Back,
Oh, you mean
back
the
when
little
it-
chrome between the window
little-
and the door?
Yeah, there was
Or
there were,
no, on the
little
doors
creases.
itself?
There were the little
Yeah.
creases.
Those are speed lines.
Yeah. Back when it first came out in like 2008, we took one up north, up to Traverse City for a family vacation, and it was great for that. You could put all kinds of stuff in there. Family of four and all their gear for a week and a half, and it was fantastic.
It was great. That weirdly creased little vehicle.
The little creases.
Well,
I've seen.
it's
I think
gone now.
I know.
doesn't
That's why I
matter.
can pick on it because you can't buy one anyway. So
yeah.
Although there's several of them in my neighborhood.
You see them around every once in a while.
no,
Ford Flex.
no,
No, it's like not the crease crease
no,
car.
no, not the creased car.
You could just fill. You buy the Ford Flex and then you buy a can of Bondo and you just
Just smooth it all out. I can't
smooth it all out.
That's what everyone does when you buy a new car. I do not like how you designed this. Where is the Bondo? I'm gonna fix this. Fixing
Smooth
it
it
right
all
now.
out.
Or maybe use a little fiberglass instead.
A little fiberglass. I know the Bondo just pops out.
Yeah. All right. Next up, while we were actually, in fact, while we were sitting, at least while I was sitting in my session for the presentation on the Sequoia, before we went for our drive, a announcement came out from Buick that they are going to be introducing their EVs starting with a model, or there is at least going to be a model called the Electra, which seems like a no-brainer for Buick, given that was a long time nameplate that they had. And the Electra is coming in 2024, but I guess they're going to have other models before that in 23. And they showed a concept that gives an indication of their new design direction for Buick. But sadly, it sounds like they're not actually going to produce anything quite like this. And this is the Buick Wildcat concept, the Wildcat EV concept.
Because me and Robbie are both doing like raw hands at the screen.
Doing kitty hands. We're doing kitty hands. Rawr.
Come on, Sam. There we
There
go.
we go. Kitty paws. We're doing kitty paw hands.
So, what do you think of the Wildcat?
I think it's really cool, which is why they'll never build it.
Yeah.
It's
I know.
cat-tastic.
It looks really. Look at the wheels. You
Yeah.
guys, look at those wheels. That
They're
is a
fantastic.
slick-looking car. That is a beautiful concept, and I don't think they'll have anything even close to that.
That's
Ever?
the problem.
Well, I think
can't-
kind
you
of
gotta have-
the shape of the front end of this thing. I think is sounds like this is the direction that we're going to be seeing for vehicles like the Electra and other EV models. And Buick wants to be all electric by 2030.
I would, if this is the direction they go. And did you look at the interior shots of this?
Yeah.
It's the interior is beautiful. It's
the bee's
gorgeous.
knees.
It's the bee's knees. It is absolutely gorgeous. If they were, I mean, they're not going to build it
Anything.
looking like this. I like, you look at those seats, you think those are stunning. They're not going to look anything like
No,
that.
no, you're
Those are
definitely not
stunning.
going to see those
They're
seats.
so
Legally,
pretty.
they won't be able to do it.
some engineer find a way to do that because that looks amazing. Some engineering people, Buick engineers, go engineer this. Make this happen. Make it so.
Hopefully, Bob Boniface finds a way to bring this concept to his Cars in My Yard party in July.
So pretty.
Bob is he is the executive director of global Buick design at General Motors, and he was the leader behind the original Chevy Volt concept back in 2007. He's done a lot of interesting stuff at GM over the years, and he has this really cool party at his house every July. Although haven't had it for the last 2 years for obvious reasons. But it's called Cars in My Yard, and traditionally it was always on the Friday night before the Concours of America here in Detroit. But that event is moving to September now, but he's still doing the party in July, and it's cool. He invites all kinds of people from friends of Bob from around the industry, and there's always an amazing collection of cars in his backyard for this party, and usually somewhere around 100 vehicles of all sorts. A couple of years ago when I was there, somebody brought an Aston Martin Lagonda. Yeah,
Wow.
You don't see those very often. And there's all kinds of fun stuff, but hopefully Bob will find a way to bring this thing to his party.
Do it.
Yeah.
I'm
Come
sad
on,
that Buick
Bob.
didn't have like because they had like an online event. They're like, oh hey, here's the car.
Yeah.
It'd been cool if they just invited a bunch of people and we could all stand around, do videos in front of it, and point at
Well,
it, and gush.
they'll probably bring this thing out to Pebble Beach.
Oh yeah, there's that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's at Pebble Beach.
The Pebble Beach. There you go.
Yeah.
Good old Pebble Beach. If this is at least a direction. I mean, obviously this is not going to come to the market. I mean, Electra. Hopefully that'll look cool. I want them to bring back the Grand National, but that's just me. Yeah, no. Fingers crossed for Buick.
Come on, Buick.
Which is the thing you didn't expect to say 10 years ago.
Right?
Buick?
Well, they're still doing okay in China.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Like, you should just tell people, like,
I mean,
Buick's still
China's
around?
the
Like,
only reason
they did
the
pretty
Buick
good.
brand even exists at this
It's
point.
true, yeah. For years, that's like the only time we heard of a Buick was in China.
Yeah.
So, but that's sort of fallen. But that's a whole other thing.
All right. Let's see. What do we have next? Oh, I guess we should probably talk about the Lexus RX, which was the other big thing out of ToyotaPalooza. So there's a new Lexus RX coming later this year, which we saw for the first time this week. And the RX has been the best-selling Lexus pretty much since it debuted almost 25 years ago. What do you think about the 2023 RX?
No, I think you get to go first. I went
Okay,
first
so-
on the other one.
All right. So,
Yeah.
so let's preface this.
I wasn't there, so I don't have to talk at all.
As usual, this was branded as an all-new, completely redesigned RX. And to be fair to Lexus, it actually was new. It's actually significantly changed underneath. But you probably couldn't tell from actually looking at it, except for, some changes to the front end, because most of it actually doesn't look that different from the current generation RX. So if you like the current generation Lexus RX, you'll probably be fond of the new RX.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
The Toyota, if it ain't broke, the don't fix it mantra.
Well, this has been kind of a weird trend with the Lexus brand over the last couple of years. Like the last couple of new vehicles that they launched, the current IS looks almost exactly the same as the old IS. Mm-hmm. The new LX SUV doesn't look that different from the old LX SUV, and now the RX looks very much. I mean, it's got the same kind of greenhouse. There's some subtle reshaping of the sheet metal. The lower body sheet metal. The most notable difference is actually at the front, where the spindle grille that has been very controversial has been reshaped, or it's been changed. So the top part of it is actually, the spindle doesn't really go all the way up to the edge of the hood anymore. The top part of it is more solid, and what you see when you look at it, it kind of looks like it's fading from a mesh or whatever the grill shape is in the lower part to a solid at the top, which is kind of an interesting look. The bigger changes are actually on the inside, where the dreaded Lexus touchpad is finally gone.
Yay,
it's dead. It's history.
Woohoo. No
Aw,
touchpad.
I was finally getting used to it. No, I'm not going
I was like, what?
I'm kidding. No one's ever been used to that.
What are you talking about?
Under the hood, there's no longer a V6 in the RX. There's, for the last 4 generations, there's always been a V6 powering the RX. No more. It's all 4-cylinder engines now. The base RX 350 is a 2.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder. The RX 450 H is a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder with a hybrid and an electric rear axle, much like what they had before. So it's basically the same, or not a 2-liter, it's a 2.5 liter. So it's basically the same powertrain that you'll find in the Sienna and the Highlander hybrid. And then there is also coming early next year, there is an RX 450H Plus plug-in hybrid. And for the first time, they've had the F Sport trim on the RX for a while now, but it's always been just an appearance package. It's never actually been a performance upgrade. Now it finally will be, because it's the RX 450, the RX 500H F Sport. Performance, yes, all that stuff.
All the letters numbers you can pack into one description possible.
Yeah, so that one combines the 2.4 liter turbo with the hybrid system, so you have something on the order of about 367 horsepower, I think, and about 400 foot-pounds of torque. So it'll be a notable performance upgrade from the other RXs. So what were your thoughts on this, Nicole?
I mean, I kind of had similar thoughts. It didn't look. If you like the old one, you'll like the new one. Second verse, same as the first kind of thing. But I do feel like the way they changed that grill up, that was kind of neat. I mean, because Lexus was all in with the spindle grill that was you either loved or you hated. And it's like, oh, we've morphed this. So I thought it was a nice way to sort of kind of keep it, but not quite,
Yeah.
Because, how do you take a dramatic grill like that and make it stay, but make it work for a new vehicle, like this? So I thought it was good. I think it's probably going to sell just as well as the old one, if not better, because it's an upgrade and it looks a little more modern and all these, it's great. It was a lot of Toyota. How Toyota excited. It's just the Palooza. It lost it in the Palooza. There was so much.
Just a little overwhelming.
It was just like, here's the X trim and here's the Y trim and here's the Z trim and here's the Z section subsection 4 paragraph 3 trim. And I'm like, so many.
I'm sorry I missed that.
Oh,
I know you are.
Speaking of which, we probably should mention the one other one that actually got people kind of excited, which is the GR Corolla Morizo Edition. Mm-hmm. Morizo is the pseudonym that Akio Toyoda uses when he goes racing. So when you see a race car with the name Morizo on it, that's got Akio Toyoda driving it. He's the president of Toyota and the heir to the founder. And the Morizo Edition takes the GR Corolla that you first saw a couple of months ago, rips out the back seats, and the rear window regulators and some other stuff, and adds some additional reinforcements. Saves about 100 pounds compared to the other GR Corollas, and also has about 20 foot-pounds more torque. Still has the same 300 horsepower from the 1.6 liter 3-cylinder turbo, but gets a little bit of extra torque, and various other things are retuned a bit to make it even more hardcore. And for the launch year 2023, there are only going to be 200 of them built, but it is something that we'll be carrying on beyond the first year of GR Corolla production.
You know what doesn't have? Rear seats. You know why? Don't need them.
That's right.
Just
See,
like
this
you're
is
saying.
like I feel where Toyota does really good. Like when they're doing all like, let's sell the little sporty little things that people can like just have fun with. That it's not like we could design these really amazing, fun cars to drive. Let's design more of those. I like that better than like the Sequoia thing. I think they're good at that. I think they do a good job with that.
Yeah.
And
GR86
not everyone is
amazing. The
like
Supra
that's
is a great
like
little car.
Exactly.
This.
Like they're the kind of cars you're like, oh, I will take this completely impractical car that I can't drive when the weather is not perfect and I can only bring like one other person with me and they can't be tall. Like Roberto's not allowed to get in him. He can't fit.
Wait,
and then,
do I not fit in the Toyota Corolla?
Well, you do fit the
Yeah.
Toyota Corolla, but I mean, they're
All
not
right.
the roomiest vehicles on the planet. Like, you know, it's not the roomiest vehicle you can buy. But I just say, like, there's a certain, like, I just want to get in a fun little car and have fun and drive and enjoy it. And they do a good job of that. I like it when they do that. Do more of that.
Do
Absolutely.
more fun, Toyota.
Do more fun.
Toyota, whoever's in charge of fun at Toyota is really good at fun.
The fun guys.
Right,
The
the fun-
That
chief,
that would be Akio.
fun
the chief
guys.
fun. Yeah, Akio, good job with the fun, Akio. He's doing
Good job
great.
with the fun. You make Toyota
You make Toyotas fun.
fun.
I like that.
Okay. Before we do the Q&A, I am going to drop in one of the interviews that I did here. I did several interviews this week at ToyotaPalooza, which will be dropping into the next couple of episodes.
ToyotaPalooza, they're gonna kill us.
The first one here, since we talked about the RX, was with Andrew Gilliland, who is the let me make sure he is the group vice president and general manager of the Lexus division in North America. And so I had a chance to chat with Andrew. The sound quality is not as good as I would have liked because, unfortunately, he had COVID, and so he
God.
did not actually come to the event. He was on a video call with me in one of the conference rooms at Toyota headquarters. But we still had a good conversation about where the Lexus brand is going and some of the other things to expect in the coming years. So I'll drop that in here, and then we will be right back with the Q&A.
That kid, in DC of all places, they with the one place they'd like really be sensitive to all this stuff. But
Yeah. All right. Well, Sam is here.
Yeah.
So if you're ready, we can.
What's up, Sam?
We can get started.
I'm doing well. This has been a good event. I'm glad we were able to get some time together to chat about Lexus and kind of where the brand's going. Let's start off with Lexus. The plan now for Lexus is to be all battery electric. Is it all battery electric or just all electric, which may include fuel cell by 2030?
I think our vision is to be all electric. So that may mean plug-in, right? Could mean hybrid, it could mean BEV.
Okay.
And I think it's obviously the market's going to really dictate this. This is really one of the big challenges I think all the manufacturers are dealing with is we're all saying, hey, we want to be battery electric, 100% by 2030 or 2035, pick a date. But the reality is the consumers are really going to dictate that, right? I mean, some of it's going to be regulatory in nature, obviously. So what we've always said is we're going to sell to whatever the customer demand is. And so we will follow that. That may again be driven by some government regulation and some things in our industry that will change over the next few years. But it is a goal that we have, and we hope to achieve it. But at the end of the day, we're going to make sure that we sell to what consumers are desiring and demanding in the marketplace.
So 2030 timeframe, all electrified would probably be a better better way of phrasing it then, and it could be whatever mix is the right mix for the market at that point.
Yeah, I think you have to set a goal and a target, right? Especially when the industry is transitioning the way it is, right? We've never seen this before. So, for us, we want to, set a goal and have an objective and work towards it. But again, it really, a lot of it's going to depend on what consumers are willing to buy. And also, like I said, what does the regulatory environment looks like, as it relates to greenhouse gas in the next 5 to 10 years. So, it's going to be a big challenge. You have raw material issues, you've got supply chain issues, you have engineering issues, you have range issues, you've got the electrical grid issues. This is I think you can look at it two ways. This could be, to me, it's the very best time to ever be in the car business in the last 30 years because of the complexity of what we're going to have to work through, and I find that to be challenging. Or it's going to be really challenging, and people aren't going to really like that. And I think it's going to be interesting to see the brands that are able to adapt, the companies that will be able to adapt to the environment that we're going to be put in, and the ones that won't. And it's going to be very interesting to see all that transpire over the next 8 to 10 years.
Lexus has already had a pretty good history of success, as has Toyota, with hybrid vehicles, hybrid powertrains. Have you noticed any shift over the past year, or particularly, I guess, the last 6 months or so, as fuel prices have gone up? Have you seen more of a shift towards those electrified powertrains?
Yeah, you can't get true demand because of the supply chain, but clearly if you're using our turn rates, our sales to availability rates, they're higher on hybrids and have been. It's particularly plug-ins, so NX plug-in for Lexus. We just can't get enough of them. We've got sold order lists. People are starting to understand, the advantages of a plug-in. We've got customers that, send me emails and say, I've had this car for 3 months, I've put a tank of gas in it because they're driving less than 50 miles a day, and it's, full EV for, I think it's 40, don't quote me on that. We can get you the exact
I think it's like 38 or something, 37 or 38.
Yeah, give or take. And we know that, the average consumer in the United States drives 37 miles to 45, depending on what survey. So we think it's a really good solution for consumers that are looking for electrification, but still may have some challenges with the idea of a full EV vehicle, right? And range and charging and all the other things that go along with that. So the answer is yes. The demand for plug-ins and hybrids is higher than it's ever been. May I share with you across the company, we continue to grow that volume, and I don't know what the top really is because we just simply can't get the supply from TMC right now because of the supply chain issues we're having. But you can see it in the sales report every month. It's been going on for the last 3 to 5 years, and we've been doing this for 20 years. So we're pretty good at these hybrid powertrains. They're quite good. So I think you're going to continue to see that demand.
For the NX plug-in, is the batteries or semiconductors that are your biggest bottleneck right now, or something else?
It's motors, it's batteries, it's just general supply chain challenges. Definitely part of it, though.
Yeah, one of the interesting trends we've been seeing recently across the industry is a lot of OEMs starting to invest more directly in a lot of these fragile supply chain bits, like the battery materials, the raw materials. And I don't know if this is something you can answer, or maybe more at the Toyota level. Toyota's always had a very strong supply base, with its affiliates and partners. But do you see expanding into some of the materials production or extraction and processing, battery recycling, as being something that the company will do to help improve availability of these technologies?
I'm probably going to leave that to Leanne to kind of answer for you. For me, I can tell you that I think we look at all that. We just recently announced an investment in Greensboro on the battery manufacturing side.
Right.
So clearly we are, just like every other manufacturer, understanding of the need to go ahead and start to invest significant amounts of money. And again, Lance probably got every detail on that you could possibly ever want. But then, you've got to deal, like you were mentioning, it's a global supply chain. And I think when you start to dig into where are these raw materials at, who controls them, there's some interesting questions that start to come up. And those questions are not for, I think, a manufacturer to answer as much as the government, quite frankly. Where are these materials coming from? How do we extract them? How do we do it in the most efficient way? Are all going to be challenges that I think the industry and the industry trade groups are going to have to work collectively on. But I don't think there's any manufacturer that's not thinking about supply chain. Now, that doesn't mean that, I think we want to get into mining. That's just my personal opinion. That Leanne will reel this in for you in a little while. But it's I think there needs to be much more of an understanding of what it's going to require for us to be more electrified. And I'm not quite sure everybody has a good grasp on that. Like I said, just when you start to research where are all these raw materials at, there are some geopolitical issues that start to come up.
Yeah.
Right.
Shifting a little bit to the sales, the retail side, as we make this transition to more and more electrification, do you see Lexus changing its strategy at all in terms of how it sells electrified vehicles going forward? We've seen yesterday Jim Farley talked at the Bernstein conference about doing all EV sales online and having non-negotiable pricing. Other companies are looking at things like battery leasing separate, apart from the vehicle sale. Is Lexus looking at different kinds of sales models as you go more electric?
I think we're always going to, our strategy is to leverage our dealers. Our dealers are a competitive advantage for us, and I think, again, if you start to look into what dealers offer in the retail model, it's really quite compelling, whether it's physical plant, people, you think about the payroll. What some of these companies are trying to accomplish, I think, is going to be a bit challenging at scale. Right? You've got to deal with all these things that I'm sure they're thinking about, but you've got trade-ins, you've got people you've got to deal with, you've got service. I think some of these startup companies like Rivian or other people that don't want a dealer network may find that to be a competitive disadvantage. We feel like our dealers are our competitive advantage, truly. And it's a built-in distribution network that we're going to leverage and we're going to partner with. So for us, we've not had that discussion of doing direct selling. I think dealers are doing a lot of the things that you would describe as a benefit of direct selling today, right? The pandemic's taught us a lot about how to deal with consumers and do much of the transaction electronically before they ever physically come into the store. But, if you're a consumer and you have a car and something's wrong, you're going to want to be able to go somewhere where there's an expert and somebody that knows you, that's in your local community that can take care of you. I've heard a lot of stories from other brands where, somebody's got a problem, they don't even know who to call or what to do. You call Lexus.
And go on Twitter and tweet at the CEO.
And I don't know what Elon's going to do.
Yeah.
But we have an extremely good relationship with our dealers, and our dealers have helped us become successful. They're such a core part of the Lexus brand, particularly. If you look at our covenant, those values are kept by both us and the dealers, and we believe it's a competitive advantage to have the dealer involved.
How do you foresee the relationship with your dealers evolving as you get more electrified? One of the challenges that we've long heard with consumers going into dealers wanting to buy an EV and being kind of steered away from the EV because dealers maybe don't want to sell them because of the potential of losing out on service revenue on the back end because there's less maintenance required. How do you see your relationship with dealers evolving to help that transition and let them continue to be a viable business going forward?
Yeah, we get a lot of these questions. It's a math problem, right? So the average age of the fleet right now, depending on who you use, is 11 or 12 years old. So we've been selling this Lexus division called 300,000 per year. So you've got 3 million cars on the road that are going to need to continue to get serviced. If we stop building ICE engines today, we still have 11 years worth of cars out there that we're going to need to service. So I think that's the first thing people aren't really putting into the business model or really doing the analysis. I mean, you're going to have internal combustion engines on the road for 20 years, 30 years. I don't know how, for some period of time.
Probably at the very least, yeah.
Right, so if you start doing that math, right, and your dealers are getting 70% retention in terms of customers they're bringing in the first 6 or 7 years, there's a pretty strong business model still there. So I think our dealers are excited about selling electric vehicles. You can imagine the amount of research that we're doing about, what does the maintenance of these vehicles look like? And initially, the data that we've been able to capture is it's about 80% of an internal combustion engine. So it's not like there's zero maintenance on these vehicles. The tire wear is probably the biggest one. Conservative estimates, it's 15,000 miles. And probably, it may wear out sooner than that. So, there's still wearable items on the vehicle that are going to need to be maintained. That we see as, again, a viable business source for our dealers. So it's less. Anybody that tells you it's not less is probably not being straight with you, but it's not zero either. And so we'll work with the dealers to figure out, different sources of revenue. And the dealers are also always, there's accessorization, there's aftermarket parts, there's all these other businesses that go on inside of a dealer that aren't just strictly maintaining the vehicle. So we're looking at all that. I think everybody in the industry is, and we'll figure that out and find a way to keep the dealers profitable. But I just keep going back to UIO. Toyota's been selling 2 million, around 2 million. So they got 20 million cars on the road. And those cars are going to need to be serviced. So I think that's something that gets missed in this conversation quite a bit, and we need to think about as a company is, there's going to be all these different types of cars on the road that we're going to have to continue to maintain. So I think for not even the near term, mid to long term, there's a pretty significant service business out there still.
Going back to sales for a moment, with the tight inventories we've had over the past year, I know some manufacturers have said that they've had a significant uptick in customers doing factory orders as opposed to buying out of inventory, especially when there is no inventory. How across the industry, it's traditionally in the U.S. has been mostly people buying out of inventory as opposed to factory orders. Is that also true for Lexus? And have you seen any shift in that mix of people ordering vehicles to make sure they can get one as opposed to buying from whatever inventory there is?
Well, there's no inventory, so everything's sort of a sold order, but it's usually not a factory order per se. It's inbound units.
Okay.
I think Lexus and Toyota have been known for their discipline around production and building, instead of 10 variations, building 3. And it's a very, vague explanation, but we've always been much more acutely aware of what consumers are looking for in the marketplace, and so our build breadth is much smaller, and so usually we can, because customers see it online and everything's connected in our world, right, in the metaverse, like we only show what we're building. You can spec a car out. If you want to special order a car, we're more than happy to do that. It's about a 90 to 120 day wait, but we're seeing most customers taking dealers taking sold orders on inbound products that we're already building. So it's not really an order to delivery. And that's it's always been that way. Mm-hmm. We've always had a lower day supply model. So our dealers I think when this all started, our dealers, quite frankly, we were much more prepared for it than some other brands, because that's the way we've always run our model at less than 30 days.
So what, assuming we get past this inventory constraint, do you think that it will go back to that 30 days that you've traditionally had, or will dealers maybe start carrying less inventory going forward?
It'll be less inventory.
Okay.
For sure. I mean, the model works for us, works for them.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens and the manufacturer's happy and the dealer's happy, that's probably a good place to be. So, our dealers have been pretty consistent in asking us to manage our inventory levels, and we will do that. Again, we've always really, frankly, we've done that in the past. We've never been a 60-day, much less 120-day supply some of the other brands have. So, yes, there will be a lower day supply model that we'll continue to try to manage. But again, you're not dealing with a small enterprise, so like we could have that goal and then the market change, or we have economic activity like we have now going on that could cause demand to slow down to the point it would take us 90 days to rebalance that. So it's a constant challenge, but we are committed to our dealers to carry a lower stock level than previous to the pandemic, and we're happy to do that.
Going a little different direction, as you start to deploy technologies like Teammate on the LS and other more advanced driver assist systems, as well as electrification and some of the connected systems, are you working with dealers to try to improve the training, make sure that the sales staff are more knowledgeable about the technology and that they can educate the customers when they come in? Because I know a lot of people don't, drive away in a new car and don't understand the technology that's in there. And my own experience, with various manufacturers has been, they often don't really know very much about what they're selling. So, is that something that Lexus is trying to address?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, these cars are, massively sophisticated. I mean, I work at the company and I struggle with it, right? So yes, it is something that we've spent an inordinate amount of time on. Is developing curriculum to try to help the dealers. We have specific positions within the store that we've asked the dealers to hire for. These Lexus diagnostic specialists. They go by different names, technology specialists. But yes, the majority of our stores have a specialist that deals with some of these sophisticated technology. But you know what? And this is a great question for you. Like you're a younger guy. Like when you can't figure something out, where do you go?
I usually end up calling somebody at one of the companies that I'm dealing with to talk to an engineer. But I'm in kind of an odd position as both a journalist and an industry analyst.
Let's say you can't call somebody that you know at a company. Like when something ain't working in your house, where do you go?
Go online, Google, and start searching for it.
You go to YouTube.
Yeah.
Every time, right? When's the last time you pulled out an instruction manual?
Right.
Right? I used to, not anymore. First thing I do is, let me go look at YouTube. So the other thing, the reason I bring this up, is we are looking to content, Lexus.com in a more robust way with many of these technologies, because we have found, especially with the newer consumers, younger consumers we're bringing in, that they're going to the internet. And if we can create engaging content through our engineers and people, like you have an engineer talking about Teammate and how it engages and when it engages and what conditions it engages, we found that is better than, in many cases, the experience that consumers are getting at the time of delivery. Because at some point, the consumers have been there 2 hours. They're like, look, man, I'm out of here. I've got other things to do. And then they get home and go, wait a minute, what that person tell me? I can't remember. Mm-hmm. And that's just, that's normal, right? It's natural. So, we're all, especially in luxury, there's a huge transition occurring with Gen X, Y, and Z that we talk about all the time. And you've probably heard us talk about during the HQ Confidential. So we need to start thinking about how do those consumers consume information, right? Where do they go to get it? And then we create it and put it in a place where they can find it. So, we've got a strong desire to create a very robust tier one website, like a microsite where people can go find out about our cars. And the other thing it allows us to do if somebody comes in and talks to a Lexus diagnostic specialist or a technology specialist, we don't know. We need Lexus. They go online and we can see what they're looking at and clicking at. Okay, now we can start to optimize what we're doing in our efforts because we can see that Andrew and 5 million other people went to this particular part of a piece of content. So we know that that's a place where we need to continue to increase, whether it's technical information, marketing information, something about us or about the car. So that's really been a huge initiative for us internally to work on.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's great to hear. I think people will really appreciate that as they start to get these technologies in their new vehicles. We're just about out of time. Any last thoughts that should be thinking about for Lexus as it goes into these next several years of transition?
Yeah, I mean, Rand's heard this. I tell everybody, I think the best 5 to 10 years of Lexus are in front of us. And the reason I say that is because of the products that we have coming. So it really started with IS. It's been followed up with NX, which have been very, very successful with younger people. Obviously, the LX has been a home run. We can't get enough of them. What a great flagship. RX, you saw, just a complete home run. And we've got some products that we'll be sharing later this year with the viewers and will be launched next year that really are equally exciting. So, I think Lexus is not the boring car for your parents anymore, quite frankly. It's exciting, it's vibrant, the products are great, and with Koji Sato, who I hope you had a chance to listen to, I mean, what a dynamic personality to have a chief engineer running Lexus that built a car like the LC. I think that sort of informs where we are. We're car people. So this is going to be fun. I'm lucky to be sitting here and to be a part of it. So I think the future is really bright for Lexus. Exciting is the word I would use.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier this morning that it's very interesting. I'm old enough to remember the original Lexus commercials from 1990 when the original LS launched. That ad with the champagne glasses sitting on the engine, and it was so smooth. They poured the champagne, nothing was vibrating, and thinking that as you transition to an electric future, that's even more. I mean, that takes that to the ultimate extreme because you have no vibration or noise from any of that, and it seems like it's a perfect fit for where the Lexus brand started.
Yeah, I mean, we've always been the pinnacle of engineering, and I don't say that in an arrogant way. That's a fact. And I think when you take that and then you add in the excitement of the design and the emotion that we're starting to get in our vehicles, along with interesting things like electrification and maybe not just BEV. Certainly, hybrid powertrains produce more torque, there's more performance, there's more fun to drive. I think, again, we've always been the QDR brand. That's Toyota's bread and butter. But now we're starting to see excitement in design and driving and technology that we haven't had in the past. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of cool products that come out of it. We're not all going to be driving BEVs in the next 5 years. So I'm pretty confident that, we have a bright future in front of us as we move to that future.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate
Hope you feel better.
Okay. So listener questions this week. Fozzie B asks, what are your general thoughts on the VinFast EVs? Also curious on your thoughts about battery subscriptions.
I would like to see VinFast EVs, and I think there's a question as to if we see them. Do you think we'll see them? Are they really going to happen here? I mean, they're huge
they said
over there.
they'll be here next year.
They have a lot of capital. I mean,
they have lots of the money.
They have lots and lots of money, so I think it's going to happen. I don't know about the U.S. market and battery subscriptions, though, especially now that we're 10, 12 years into EVs. Like, batteries just don't fail as much as people think they do.
I think it's perhaps not quite so much about battery failure as trying to make the EVs more affordable.
But is it more affordable if you're still paying for it?
Well, it depends on how much they reduce the purchase price of the vehicle. If they can bring that price down to a more affordable level, And I mean, the thing with a battery subscription, as you said, batteries are not failing the way we thought they might a decade ago. They're actually lasting quite a long time. And so for the manufacturers, after 10 years or something, there's still value in that battery to the manufacturers. They can take that battery out of the vehicle and put it into a stationary storage application or some other type of second use application, and use it there for a few years before it gets recycled. So, because of that long-term value that the battery has to the manufacturer, they could, ideally, if they're going to do subscriptions, they can reduce the price of that subscription so that the combination of the battery subscription and the monthly payments on the car are hopefully less than what we're paying for EVs today, where you're just buying the whole thing. Again, that's all theoretical. We don't know exactly how much they're going to charge for this stuff.
Well, I think the subscription, if you're under 310 miles, it's $35 for the VF8. If you're driving the VF9, it's $44 a month. For 310, if you're less than 310 miles. If you want to
310 miles of range, or
a month. That's a monthly. So
300 miles a month?
So you get to drive 300 miles a month. Yeah, you were really excited until I said that, weren't you? 300. Let's say 310 miles a month.
No.
Wait a minute. No.
Hold on. Wait. So there's two tiers. This is the first tier. 300 miles a month, $35, $44. If you want unlimited, it's $110 a month for the VF8 and $160 a month for the VF9.
Oh, okay. See, that unless the the monthly payment on the car, unless you can get that vehicle for let's say $25,000, and have a $200 a month payment or something, or $250 a month payment, that's going to be a tough sell.
Yeah, because the VF8 starts at $40,000, $700. The VF9 starts at $55,500. So it's even with the you get your federal tax incentive and all that stuff. It's still just like, but and you get free battery maintenance, and a free replacement once the battery degrades below 70%.
But that doesn't.
But that's just, which is like, it just.
I feel like that's only going to matter. But you know what, though? As I say this, the number of things you see when people comment about EVs, just the general public about EVs online, a lot of people don't get that the battery doesn't just like go poof and stop working right after, 2 charges.
I mean, sometimes it does go poof.
Well, yeah. We had that whole Bolt thing. That aside, the actual poof. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't think some people, I genuinely don't think that's not an issue.
It's not like an engine that can seize up if you never change the oil.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to mention another word about my kid.
Oh my God! Oh no.
Yeah. So it's I don't know, the battery subscription thing. It's a tough. I feel like it's going to be a tough sell here. And I think eventually I think they're going to eventually have a vehicle without the subscription thing, but it's unless you're the kind of person who's going to be like just driving like an animal. You're going to be like,
yeah, I mean, if you're going to drive 50, 60, 70,000 miles a year.
Yeah, if you're DC fast charging every time to 100%, you get in that car, go for it. Get the subscription. But also if you do that, you're probably going to hit the warranty anyway, and they'll have to change your, if you get a Hyundai or a Tesla or whatever, they're going to have to replace your battery.
Okay. So yeah, it all depends on the economics and how the numbers work out. I mean, it could theoretically be good, but based on what we've seen of VinFast so far, doesn't look promising for the subscription model. And to be honest, from what we've seen of the VinFast vehicles at the New York Auto Show, the quality didn't look great.
Yeah, they're new. We'll see.
Yeah. We'll
but
see.
they're not new here. Like they're
not
like
new here. They've been making.
Here, but they've been doing this forever in
They've been
Vietnam.
building off of
Vietnam. Thank you. I lost the
BMWs.
country in Vietnam.
They've been building vehicles off the BMW platform. So
all right.
They've been building cars. So well, we'll see.
So Steve Levine had a question about the Bolt and Ultium. Will the Bolt carry on through the decade, and will it have Ultium? I doubt it.
I don't think so. I feel like that car is just like, it's here for now, and they'll be more than happy to like sort of toss it aside once they have something that's Ultium and can be new and has a cool new name, and it won't be associated with fire.
I mean, unless there is a sudden resurgence of small car sales in the U.S. market, I have a hard time believing that the Bolt, at least, maybe the EUV, maybe a new version of the EUV, but the regular Bolt, I can't see that living on, more than a couple of years past the introduction of the Equinox EV next year. So, I would, by 2025, the Bolt is going to be 8 years old.
Wow.
And I seriously doubt that they will, they may do a redesigned Bolt EUV that is, even more crossover like, but the standard Bolt, and when they do that, then it'll be an Ultium. But I don't think that the original Bolt is likely to carry on.
Yeah, I think it's going to go bye-bye.
It's not long for this world. If you want a small EV, you're going to have to look to Mini.
Yeah, or Kona.
Or Kona.
Yeah.
The Kona.
Kona.
Alan Patton asks, I appreciated Robbie detailing his EV range testing method. That got me thinking of how NHTSA determines range and MPGE ratings for EVs. Do you have any insights or experience with this? Yeah, so actually it's not NHTSA that does it. EPA is the one that actually does the certification of emissions and fuel economy. NHTSA does the calculations of corporate average fuel economy and enforcement of that. And actually, they don't even do the EPA doesn't even do the testing. That's actually done by the manufacturers. We have a process of self-certification here in the U.S. market where manufacturers actually do the testing and they submit the paperwork to EPA. EPA looks it over, and sometimes, on some small percentage of new vehicles, they will actually do. They'll request a vehicle from the manufacturer and do their own testing to verify. But that is only about 15% of new vehicles. So most are only tested by the manufacturers. And the way they test them is the same way that they test gasoline and diesel vehicles. They use the exact same drive cycles. And they put them on a dyno. They do coast down testing on the track first to determine the aerodynamic drag and rolling resistance and everything. And they use that to calibrate the dynamometer, put it on the dyno, and they run it through the city drive cycle and the highway drive cycle and they keep doing that until the battery is completely depleted, and they figure out how many miles it drove on a charge. And then the MPGE actually comes. There's a formula that's used. It's part of a model developed by the national. Let's see, was it Oak Ridge? I think it was
Oak Ridge Brothers.
No, the
Wait, what?
Oak Ridge National Lab. It was one of the national labs developed a model called GREET, which is an acronym that I can't remember what it stands for now. But basically, it's an energy equivalence model between different fuels. So 1 gallon of gasoline has the energy equivalent of 33.7 kilowatt hours. And so if you know how many kilowatt hours per mile an EV gets, you can translate that into miles per gallon equivalent based on that energy equivalence formula. So that's how they come up with those.
And then almost all the automakers, except for two, there's an adjustment factor that they have to come in because they know that real-world testing on a dyno isn't real-world testing. And so everyone else uses one adjustment factor, and then two companies, that there might be more actually at this point, they use an additional adjustment factor, which gives them 5 tests on the dyno, and that is Tesla and Lucid, because they are battling to be the best.
The bestest.
But if there's any indication from Tesla's in real world tests for EV, like when a lot of people, magazines, publications, whoever, Teslas don't always quite make it to their range, while other automakers, their vehicles will hit the range or do better, especially the Volkswagen group, which I think they're just gun shy, but they actually go with the lower numbers.
Yeah.
So it's so to your answer is we have zero insight on MP on.
None, zero, nada.
Teslas typically fall about anywhere from 20 to 30% short of their EPA label range numbers compared to in real world driving, whereas most other manufacturers meet or exceed those numbers. Like the Porsche Taycan, which when it first came out, I complained quite a bit about why it was only rated at 204 miles of range or something like that. But in the real world testing, it usually gets somewhere between 270 and 280 miles. So it beats it quite handily. So it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Bryn Berenshausen asks, I'm begging automakers to stop making sedan EVs only their super fast, expensive flagship models. Some of us still want an affordable midsize EV sedan to daily drive.
I'm thinking of something. Maybe Buick will have something, the Electra.
Maybe. But I doubt it.
I mean, I would want.
I mean, I'm with you, Bryn. I want to see more sedans, EV sedans.
It'll probably come from Hyundai, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because Hyundai's
the Hyundai Ioniq 6, the Ioniq 6 is coming out this fall, and that is like a Sonata-sized sedan. So that is probably the one you'll want to be looking for, and I wouldn't be surprised. Kia hasn't said anything about it yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did something similar as well. So that there's at least one that's coming, and we'll probably see some others over the next couple of years. Maybe one of the Buicks might fit in that category, although I haven't seen any indication from GM that they're going to do any Buick sedans at least for the North American market. They certainly will in China, where sedans are still much more popular. So it all comes down to what people are actually buying.
And that's why they're not going with sedans as fast. Everyone, the whole crossover SUV craze, that's where they're going that direction because that's where people are going.
Yep.
They'll start, so blame your fellow car buyers for that one.
Yeah. Okay. Daryl asks, what was your worst car review as far as driving, tech, just a bad vehicle, etc.?
The Nissan Versa Note.
Really?
I hated that little thing. It was it felt like such a tin can. I mean, I know it was affordable, but there are very few cars when I've gotten, in fact, that might be the only one when I got it as a press, not the Versa Note. When I got it
that was the hatchback.
Yeah. When I got that as a press car, I happened to have a very long drive. Like I was driving to the Cape or something. I was all excited to take the press car. And I'm like, nope, I'm not driving that. I literally left it behind. I'm like, no, I don't feel comfortable. I don't even feel safe. It felt so nothing. It felt so tinny and so cheap. I was like, that was my least favorite. That's the one that I thought was really terrible. Sorry, Nissan, I love you. And I like the Versa as a nice little affordable compact car, but the Versa Note, no, thank you.
What about you, Robbie?
Oh, I can't remember the name of it. It's that car that looks like an old-timey car that came out in the 90s. Oh, it's like a little SUV. God damn it. It's the same time as the Prowler.
All I can think is this Prowler. It's not the Prowler.
The other one. The one that everyone bought. The one with
the PT Cruiser?
Oh, the PT Cruiser.
PT Cruiser.
I had that as a rental car once. It was terrible.
Worst. So this is before I was an automotive journalist. I was a college student. I was a film student, and a friend of mine was a videographer. And we lived in San Francisco. We had to drive to L.A. to do a job. He wasn't feeling well. He asked me to come along, and just in case he wasn't feeling well, I could do the job for him. Cool. He's like, I rented us a car. Cool. I got the PT Cruiser. Cool. There's lots of room. We could drive the PT Cruiser. Within 5 miles of driving that, he didn't even feel well enough to drive. Within 5 miles of driving that car, I absolutely hated it. I hated it so much. Everything about that car, I'm like, it doesn't know what it wants to be. It's uncomfortable. You can't see out the rear windows. Like, everything about this car is horrible. And every time I see one on the road, I'm like, you have been scammed.
You poor sucker, you.
You probably shouldn't talk to my next door neighbor.
Does he have a PT Cruiser?
She has she just bought a new one, or a newer one, to replace the old one that was worn out.
I'm
She
sure
likes
She bought a 2010, like one of the last ones.
And then she bought another one? Did I follow that right?
She had a 2003 or 4. And bought a 2010 like 6-8 months ago.
Do you not like this neighbor? Did you not share with her that she was making a mistake?
People love the PT Cruiser.
Yeah, some people really like it.
There are people they
I do
fix
like
them
her.
up.
She's very nice. You know, talk to
I
her all
do
the
like
time.
her. Look at her defending. I do
But,
like her. She just likes a weird car.
I had recommended that she might want to take a look at the Maverick. That it would be a good choice, because she uses it to take her dogs to the dog park, and she's got had 2 very large dogs. Unfortunately, one of them died recently. But the Maverick, I thought would have been a perfect car for her. But she went for a 10-year-old
love what
PT,
they love.
a 12-year-old PT Cruiser.
People love it. I like Toad the Wet Sprocket. What are you gonna do?
So my worst review was the 2009 Chevy Aveo 5, which I reviewed for Autoblog back in 2009.
Aveo.
Wow.
This was a little Korean-built hatchback, and the fact that it's Korean is actually irrelevant. But it was built by Daewoo, GM's Korean division, and it was not good. I mean,
it was a car, and that's where it ended.
It operated under its own power, But at the time, my daughter, our older daughter had a 2008 Honda Fit Sport, and
that's a good car.
the Aveo, I want to say this one had the automatic transmission, had the vinyl seats, which were optional instead of the cloth seats.
Instead of just burlap sacks.
This was the up level version. Okay, and in January 2009, this thing was priced at $17,610.
Wow.
Which was more than the Honda Fit Sport at that time.
Wow.
And the Honda was such a vastly better car than this in every conceivable way. It was quicker, it was better handling, it was better looking, it was roomier, and in fact, at this time, in 2009, you could have bought a low mileage 2-year-old, used Fit Sport for a couple of grand less than this, and you would have had a much better car with better fuel efficiency. Yeah, it was only rated at 25 miles per gallon city and 34 highway, for a small car, which was kind of mediocre. So
it's just they're phoning it in. They're just phoning it in.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
the others do
to be fair, less than a year later, they replaced the Aveo with the Chevy Spark, which was a much, 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 much better car.
Yeah.
Compared to the Aveo, it was.
I like it qualifies. Compared to the Aveo.
The Spark was actually a decent car.
Yeah, Spark is fine.
The Aveo was not.
The Aveo was, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that PT, I'm still angry about that PT Cruiser. Every once in a while, someone will say, PT Cruiser's good, and I'll immediately,
No!
I don't want to I don't want to yuck on someone's yum.
Well, that's
That's
the
why
thing
you
with
can't
my
tell your
neighbor.
neighbor.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I don't want to
that's
yuck
why
on her.
I don't
get
want
it.
If you love the PT Cruiser, wonderful. I'm happy that you're happy. I'm happy that they made them. I'm happy that the people who built them had jobs. The dealership.
It gets her and Duke to the dog park,
Yeah.
safely, and
But
reliably.
I absolutely hate that car. Just absolutely.
I think I think I reviewed the PT Cruiser actually not long after I did the Aveo.
Were you in
Oh
trouble?
my God.
It's
Did
just the way the schedule worked out.
Did you anger the Autoblog gods?
All right. Adam J. is more of a comment here. Can we please applaud GM for including delivery charge in the listed price of the vehicle? Let's get that trending. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier when we were talking about the Bolt. And that is a good thing, and I think, everybody should be doing that. Whatever price that they show, in their advertising and marketing should include that price. Okay, finally, Fozzie B. Oh, wait. Didn't
We already answered that
talked
one.
about
You
this?
put things in twice,
Okay.
so that's
Sorry,
the end.
That one
Double
twice.
up.
So
You
that's
got a
it.
little carried away.
We're all done.
That's it.
Yay! Oh, sorry. Suck it, PT Cruiser.
Oh, PT Cruiser.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody, and hopefully we'll we'll talk to you again next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
O'Reilly. Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free and provides a report with solutions based on over 650 million vehicle scans verified by ASE certified master technicians. And if you need help, we can recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.